I had always thought my life was ordinary. I ran a small bookstore tucked into the corner of a quiet street in a city that rarely stirred after midnight. My world smelled of old paper, polished wood, and the faint sweetness of worn leather bindings. Rain often tapped gently against the tall windows. And I liked the rhythm of it, how it made the city seem like it belonged only to me. I could lose myself in this soft lamplight, the rustle of pages, the quiet hum of a world at rest. But ordinary ended the night he appeared. I had been closing the shop later than usual. The streets were slick and empty, the lamplight reflecting in puddles like scattered stars. My umbrella had broken hours ago, and now I walked briskly, hands buried deep in my coat pockets, praying the rain wouldn't soak through before I reached home. That's when I saw him. He was standing under the awning of an abandoned cafe, shadowed by the darkness, but somehow luminous, as if the night itself had wrapped him in a private glow. His coat was long and black, wet at the edges, clinging to a form that was impossibly tall, impossibly elegant. His hair, dark as midnight, fell across his forehead in a careless sweep. And when he lifted his head, I felt before I even saw his eyes. They were not ordinary eyes. They glowed faintly, amber like molten gold, reflecting the street lamps in a way that made my pulse quicken. I should have looked away. I should have kept walking. I should have run. But I couldn't. My feet froze to the pavement, my heart pounding as if it had recognized something my mind had not. "I've been waiting," he said, his voice low and smooth, like velvet sliding over steel. The words made no sense. Waiting for me. I glanced around. The street was empty. The rain whispered against the pavement. And yet, standing there in the dark, I felt as if my entire world had shifted. I'm sorry," I stammered. "I think you have the wrong person." But he only smiled a small, knowing curve of his lips and stepped closer. I felt the air change. It was heavier, electric, a force that pressed against my chest. My instinct screamed at me to run, and yet my legs refused to move. "You don't know me," he said, "but I know you." A shiver ran down my spine. Something in me wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as the fevered imagination of a woman too tired, too wet, and too alone. But the truth was, I hadn't felt alone until now. And now I felt seen in a way that scared me, in a way that thrilled me. I pulled my coat tighter around me, stepping back. But the rain couldn't wash away this sudden awareness that my life, the ordinary life I had clung to, was teetering on the edge of something I could not comprehend. The night carried a scent I had never smelled before. It was faint, musky, like earth after rain, but richer, darker, with an undercurrent that made my head spin. I tried to breathe, to steady myself, but every inhale carried the essence of him, something I could neither name nor place. Then, as if on cue, the shadows behind him flickered. I caught movement, slight but deliberate. Something or someone was there, just beyond the reach of the lamplight. My pulse quickened. "Who's there?" I demanded, though my voice sounded thin and uncertain even to me. No answer came. Only the whisper of rain and the distant hum of the city. And yet I felt its presence. Watching, waiting, breathing. The man stepped forward, closer now, close enough that I could see the sharp line of his jaw, the cold perfection of his cheekbones. His amber eyes seemed to pierce through me, seeing not just my face, but the secret places I didn't even allow myself to know existed. "You're afraid," he said, "and you should be." I swallowed hard, trying to summon courage, trying to tell myself it was just fear playing tricks. "Afraid of what?" He tilted his head, a gesture that was both amused and haunting. Of the truth you were born to discover. I wanted to ask him what he meant, to demand he stop speaking in riddles. Instead, my throat went dry, and I realized that I was standing at the edge of something enormous, something inevitable. I had no choice but to take notice, to acknowledge the pull that drew me toward him despite every warning bell in my mind. A cold wind swept down the street, stirring the puddles at our feet. For a moment, it felt as though the city itself held its breath, waiting. And in that instant, I thought I saw the shadows behind him move again. Closer this time, swifter. But when I blinked, there was nothing. Only him, still standing, still watching, as though he could command the night itself to obey him. I wanted to turn, to run home to the safety of my warm apartment, to the familiar smell of old books and candle wax. But my feet did not move. Something in me insisted that the ordinary life I had clung to was gone. That whatever he was, whatever I had stumbled into, was only the beginning. He extended a hand, not threatening, not pleading, but certain. The certainty radiated from him like a living force. My instincts screamed at me to reject it, to push away, to flee. But something deeper, a part of me I had never known, a part I had never allowed to exist, urged me to reach for it. I did not take his hand. Not yet, but I stared at it, at him, at the strange and terrifying gravity that pulled me closer. And then the air shifted again, colder this time, and I felt it, the presence behind him, in the darkness, no longer patient. It was moving, approaching, hunting. I barely had time to notice before a flicker of movement in the shadows made me step back. My heart lurched into my throat. And then he spoke, his voice cutting through the night like a blade wrapped in silk. "You will see soon enough. Be warned. Once you see, you cannot unsee." The words lingered, echoing in the empty street long after the stranger had vanished into the night. I stood there, rain dripping from my hair, coat soaked through, trembling. My ordinary life, the life I thought I understood, was gone. And somewhere in the distance, a pair of amber eyes watched me from the darkness, patient, knowing, waiting for the moment I would cross the line into a world I could never leave. That was the night I first sensed it. The pull of something ancient, something forbidden, something that would change everything. And I knew with a certainty that made my blood run cold that I would never be ordinary again. The days after that rainy night were strange. Ordinary things, the warm glow of my kitchen, the quiet hum of the city. The scent of fresh coffee in the morning felt fragile, as though at any moment they could shatter. Shadows seemed deeper, longer, stretching across corners that had never held darkness before. I began to feel eyes on me even when the street was empty. A faint brush of cold along my skin that vanished the moment I turned. At first I told myself I was imagining it. Stress, exhaustion, the leftover adrenaline from that encounter. But denial lasted only until the first whisper it came one evening in the bookstore. I was closing up, stacking the last few books in neat piles, when I heard it a soft hiss, like someone exhaling my name just beyond the shelves. "Evelyn." I froze, my heart leaping. The store was empty, the bell above the door silent. I turned in slow circles, eyes scanning every shadow, every nook of the shop. Nothing. And yet the whisper came again, this time fainter, almost playful. "Evelyn." I clutched a stack of books to my chest, forcing myself to laugh. "It's just the wind," I muttered, but my voice sounded hollow, even to me. The next few days were worse. Every time I left the shop, I felt like I was being followed, though no one was ever there. Streetlights flickered when I passed. Cats hissed and disappeared into alleys. Even the air seemed charged, vibrating with something unseen. Then came the dreams. They started innocuously, shadows moving at the edge of my vision. Oh, a low hum in the darkness. But soon they became vivid, impossible to ignore. I saw him, Lucian, standing in the woods behind my apartment, surrounded by fog that glowed silver under a pale moon. His eyes were the same amber, glowing with that strange, molten fire. And he was always watching me, waiting. I woke trembling, the sheets damp with sweat, and the room silent, yet somehow heavier. Something lingered in the air, a presence that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I tried to tell myself these were dreams, hallucinations even. But one evening, as I walked home from the shop, I felt the unmistakable brush of a hand against my shoulder. I spun around. Empty street. Not a soul in sight. Only the whisper of wind through the trees and the faint, lingering scent of something earthy, rich, and dark. I quickened my pace. My keys clutched like a talisman. My apartment had never seemed so small, so fragile. The city lights blurred in the rain as my mind raced. Something was out there. Something was waiting. It was during one of these walks that I first saw the warning. A small crumpled note pinned to a lamppost fluttering in the wind. The paper was old, yellowed, and the writing jagged, almost hurried. Do not follow the shadows. Do not trust the eyes that burn like fire. My fingers shook as I picked it up. The ink was dark, almost wet, and a chill ran down my spine. Who had left this? Was it a stranger? Or someone or something warning me about Lucien? I stared at the note and then the street behind me. Shadows pooled at the corners of the alleyways, blacker than they should have been. I felt it again, that unmistakable pull, as if the night itself wanted to lead me somewhere I wasn't ready to go. The bookstore became my sanctuary, and yet even there, nothing felt safe. Books fell off shelves for no reason. A lamp flickered, casting shapes across the walls that I could swear were moving. I began to notice subtle things. A book opened to a page I hadn't touched. Footprints in the dust where I had cleaned hours earlier. The faint, almost imperceptible sound of breathing when I was alone. I confided in no one. Who would believe me? A stranger appearing in the rain, shadows that whispered my name, warnings from unknown hands. It sounded insane, even to myself. Yet I couldn't deny the unease clawing at me every moment. One afternoon, a customer arrived who changed everything. He was an elderly man, thin with piercing gray eyes and a presence that made me instinctively step back. "You're in danger," he said before I could greet him. His voice was soft but firm, and it carried an authority I couldn't ignore. I don't understand," I stammered. Clenching the counter, "You've seen him," the man said, leaning closer. Eyes scanning the empty store as if he could see the hidden world beyond the walls. "The one who comes in the rain. The one who waits in the shadows." My pulse stopped. "How? How do you know about him?" He sighed, a tired, heavy sound. "Because he is not of your world, and you are not meant to be his." Fear and disbelief collided in my chest. I don't understand," I whispered again. The man shook his head slowly. "It is not your fault that you are seen. But you must be careful. The pull you feel. It is dangerous. And there are those who would take you before you even realize what has chosen you." Before I could ask more, he turned, leaving as suddenly as he had appeared. On the counter, he left a small vial of dark liquid, almost black. I picked it up with trembling fingers. No label, no instructions, only the faint metallic scent of blood. I tried to sleep that night, but the dreams came again. This time, they were sharper, more urgent. I saw Lucien's face, amber eyes blazing. But there was a tension there I hadn't noticed before, fear, or perhaps warning. Behind him, figures moved like smoke, faces hidden, but their intent clear. I awoke gasping, my heart hammering, and the room felt different. Charged with a presence I could not name. Over the next week, ordinary life fractured further. My neighbors glanced at me strangely when I walked past. Mail arrived with no return address, containing only cryptic warnings. Leave before it is too late. Do not look into the eyes that burn. Even my reflection in the mirror seemed off. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw someone or something standing just behind me, vanishing when I turned dot, and then, one evening, it happened. I was closing the shop, the rain pattering softly against the windows. When I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate. I spun around. Empty street. No one. My pulse raced, but I told myself it was nothing, just paranoia. And then I heard it again. This time a whisper low, commanding, and impossibly close. "Evelyn." The hairs on my arms stood on end. The air grew colder, denser, as if the world itself had leaned in to watch. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. But I couldn't move. My body was paralyzed with a strange mix of fear and fascination. From the shadows of the alley, amber eyes glowed. Not human. Not fully. And yet they were fixed on me, aware of me, waiting. I had no idea then that my life was no longer my own, that the ordinary world I clung to was gone. That every street, every shadow, every whisper carried the weight of a world I could not ignore. And as I stood there, trembling in the rain, I realized something terrifying. The danger was not coming. It was already here. I had hoped it was over, that the whispers, the shadows, and the strange warnings would fade like a bad dream. But they didn't. If anything, they had grown stronger. My apartment felt smaller now, every corner suspicious, every reflection in the glass holding some unseen secret. And then he appeared again. It was a late evening, the city quiet except for the steady rhythm of rain on the rooftops. I had been walking home, umbrella clutched tightly, heart still rattling from the events of the past week. That's when I saw him, Lucien. He was standing on the steps of an old bridge overlooking the river, backlit by the faint glow of the street lamps. Even at a distance, I could see him clearly, the long black coat clinging to him like it was part of his skin, the dark hair falling over his forehead, and those amber eyes. They were piercing, impossibly alive, and fixed on me. The world seemed to shrink to him alone. Rain blurred the city, but he remained sharp, luminous in a way that made the wet streets look like a stage for his arrival. My breath caught, my legs froze. "You shouldn't have come out tonight," he said, his voice low and smooth, carrying both a warning and an invitation. I live here," I stammered, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound firm. "I can walk where I want." He tilted his head, a gesture that made my heart lurch. "And yet you always find yourself where you're not meant to be." There was something about him, something impossible to define. He exuded danger, yes, but also a pull that seemed to reach straight into me, tugging at a part of my soul I had never known existed. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once, like standing on the edge of a cliff and feeling the wind push you toward the unknown. He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, fluid, as though he belonged to the night itself. The amber of his eyes glowed faintly through the rain, and I felt an energy, an almost magnetic force that made it impossible to turn away. My instinct screamed at me to flee, to run back to the safety of my apartment, but my feet were rooted to the cobblestones. "You're different," he said, his gaze intense, almost studying me. "I can feel it." I swallowed, unsure if I wanted to hear more. "Different how?" He smiled then, the kind of smile that made the world tilt and your chest tighten. "Different from the others, stronger, curious, brave, even when you don't realize it. And that makes you dangerous and irresistible." I blinked, unsure if I had heard correctly. The word irresistible echoed in my mind, sending a shiver down my spine. Dangerous, irresistible. My pulse drummed in my ears. I had no idea what to say. No idea if words were even enough. "You don't understand," I whispered finally, though it sounded feeble. "I don't even know what you are." His gaze softened slightly, strange flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. "You will." In time, there was a pause then, the rain falling between us like a curtain, the city holding its breath. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. I was drawn to him, utterly and completely. Every instinct in me screamed against it, yet my heart betrayed me, hammering in a rhythm that matched his presence. "I shouldn't be here," I said, trying to step back, but the force that seemed to emanate from him made it feel almost impossible. My body wanted to retreat, but my curiosity anchored me in place. "You already are," he murmured, taking another step closer. And then, just as suddenly, he stopped, the faintest hint of hesitation on his lips. "And soon. You will understand what that means." I felt it then, a strange warmth pooling in my chest despite the cold rain. A connection I couldn't name, a pull that seemed to defy logic. Every fiber of my being wanted to reach out, to step closer, yet I was terrified of what I might find if I did. "I feel like I'm losing myself," I admitted in a whisper, my hands trembling. "But I don't want to." He tilted his head again, amber eyes softening. "You will not lose yourself. Not to me, but you will find something more than you ever imagined." The rain picked up, cold droplets running down my face, but I barely noticed. I was aware of only him, the way he moved, the weight of his gaze, the way the night seemed to bend around him. It was intoxicating, dangerous, and forbidden sand. I knew deep down that I was standing at the edge of something I could not resist. No matter how hard I tried, he stepped even closer, close enough that I could see the faintest glimmer of his fangs when he smiled. Subtle but undeniable. My heart lurched, and I realized with a shock that I didn't want to look away. The pull between us was magnetic, undeniable, and utterly forbidden. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And yet, I've been waiting for you." Waiting. The word lodged itself in my chest like a stone. Waiting for me. For who I was. For what I could become. I wanted to question him, demand answers, but my mind felt scattered, spinning with the intensity of his presence, and then, without warning, he turned, his coat flaring slightly in the wind, and disappeared into the shadows along the bridge. Just like that, he was gone, leaving only the sound of rain and the echo of his words lingering in the night. I stood there for what felt like hours, drenched and trembling, staring into the darkness where he had vanished. My body wanted to run, my mind screamed to escape. Yet every part of me ached with the need to see him again. I knew then that nothing would ever be ordinary again, that the world I had thought I understood, the quiet city streets, the gentle rhythm of my life, the safety of my own space was gone. And in its place there was him, magnetic, dangerous, impossible to ignore. For days afterward, I walked through the city in a daze, half expecting him to appear at every corner, every alley, every shadowed doorway. I found myself replaying our encounter, memorizing the curve of his jaw, the glow of his eyes, the way the rain seemed to follow him like it belonged to him. And yet, beneath the thrill, there was fear. Forbidden attraction carries its own weight, and mine pressed heavily against my chest. I didn't know who or what he truly was, only that I wanted to be near him, to understand him, to feel the pull of his presence again. At the same time, I couldn't shake the unease that came with it. There were warnings, whispers, shadows, dreams, everything pointing to danger I didn't yet understand. I was curious, yes, but conflicted. Drawn to him, yet terrified. Every step I took felt like walking a tightrope between fascination and disaster by the time I reached my apartment that night. I was exhausted, my mind a storm of questions and emotions. The ordinary world I had clung to no longer existed. The rain had stopped, but the tension lingered heavy in the air. And somewhere in the darkness beyond my walls, I knew he was there, waiting, watching, patient. And I realized, with a mixture of dread and longing, that my life and my heart would never be mine again. I had tried to convince myself that Lucien was a stranger, that the night on the bridge had been nothing more than a strange coincidence, a hallucination conjured by exhaustion and the lingering stress of my unusual week. But no matter how hard I tried, reality had begun to fracture around me. The first signs were subtle. My apartment, which had always been my refuge, started to feel off. Books I had stacked neatly would be in different places when I returned from work. A window that I was certain I had closed would be slightly ajar, letting in the faint smell of rain and something earthy, something ancient. My reflection in the mirror sometimes seemed delayed, as if it was hesitating before moving along with me. I shook my head and tried to reason it away. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was imagining things. But then came the dreams dot in them. The same bridge, the same amber eyes, the same rain-soaked night, but darker. Shadows moved behind him, sharp and fluid. Figures that were not human, their faces hidden, but their intent clear. One dream ended with a scream I could hear even after waking, as though my own voice had become something foreign. Something split between fear and exhilaration. The line between dreams and reality began to blur. One afternoon at the bookstore, customer, young woman, I had never seen before, looked straight at me with wide, urgent eyes. "You don't know him, do you?" she asked, her voice trembling. I frowned. "Who?" "The one who waits in the shadows," she said quickly, glancing over her shoulder. You need to be careful. He's not like anyone you know." Before I could respond, she left, her coat flapping behind her in the wind. I barely caught her name, Laura, but she disappeared before I could ask any questions. The sense of urgency, the fear radiating from her, left my chest tight and my pulse racing. Even the city itself seemed complicit. Streetlights flickered when I passed. Cats disappeared into alleys, their eyes glowing unnaturally. The air was thicker at night, charged with something I couldn't name, but something I felt in my bones. Every time I thought I had escaped, a shadow would flicker across the corner of my vision. A shape moving too fluidly to be human. And then the accident started. It was a rainy Thursday when I nearly stepped into the path of a car. I hadn't been distracted, at least I didn't think I had. I had been focused on the uneven pavement and the umbrellas jostling past me. And yet, the car came out of nowhere, tires screeching. I jumped back instinctively, heart pounding, soaked to the bone. A man in a dark coat, a stranger I didn't recognize, stood nearby, watching. His expression was calm, calculating. He disappeared before I could approach, leaving only the feeling that he had been waiting for something, or someone. Later that night, the dreams returned with a vengeance. I found myself walking the rain-soaked streets again, drawn toward the same bridge. The fog was heavier this time, wrapping around me like living tendrils. And then I saw him. Lucien standing in the shadows, still, patient, unblinking. The amber of his eyes cut through the fog like a lighthouse in a storm. "Why do you keep appearing?" I asked aloud, my voice trembling despite my attempt at composure. He stepped forward, rain sliding off his coat in rivulets. "Because you are not meant to ignore this world, Evelyn. You are already part of it, whether you accept it or not." I wanted to argue, to run, to retreat into the safety of my old life. But I couldn't. Every instinct in me screamed at me to turn, yet my feet remained rooted to the cobblestones. The pull was magnetic and terrifying. "You should go," I said finally, trying to summon authority in my voice. "I don't know what this is. I don't know what you are." His smile was small but sharp, like a blade hidden in velvet. "And yet you do," he whispered, taking another step closer. His presence alone made the air heavy, pressing against me in a way that made it impossible to breathe normally. "You know, there's no turning back now." I shook my head. "I don't understand. I don't want this. I don't—" "You already do," he interrupted, softer now, almost tenderly. "And one day soon, you'll see what it means to be chosen." Before I could respond, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Shadows shifted unnaturally around the bridge. Figures emerged from the mist, tall, fluid, and menacing. My pulse spiked as I realized they were watching Mino, watching us. The warmth of Lucien's presence was still there, but now I understood the danger surrounding it. He was powerful, yes, but there were others, things that wanted me, that would not hesitate to take me. "Stay behind me," he said suddenly, his voice calm but commanding. The words barely registered before the first of the shadows lunged. I wanted to scream, but my voice failed. Time slowed, the world narrowing to the amber glow of his eyes and the swaying shapes of the approaching figures. He moved faster than I could comprehend, intercepting them with a strength that was almost inhuman. The shadows recoiled, their forms writhing like smoke before retreating into the fog. I stumbled back, heart racing, lungs burning. What are they?" I managed, trembling. "Hunters," he said simply, though his eyes were still scanning the darkness. "And now they know you exist. You can no longer pretend the world you knew is safe." I wanted to protest, to deny it, to cling to the idea that my old life, the simple, quiet existence I had loved, was still there. But the truth was undeniable. It was gone, completely, forever. Lucien's gaze softened for a fleeting moment. And for the first time, I saw something human behind the immortal mask. "I didn't want it to happen this way," he said quietly, "but it did, and now you must see the world as it truly is." The rain fell harder, drumming against the bridge, mixing with my tears as I tried to catch my breath. The ordinary, the safe, the predictable Ed had vanished. My life was no longer mine, and in that realization, a thrill ran through me, terrifying and intoxicating. I wanted to run, to hide, to return to the mundane life I had known. But the pull of him, of this world, was impossible to resist. Every fiber of my being was caught between fear and fascination, danger and desire. And in that moment, as the shadows recoiled but remained in the fog beyond, I knew with absolute certainty the supernatural was no longer a possibility. It was reality, and it was coming for me. The days after the encounter on the bridge were a haze of restless sleep, half-remembered dreams, and constant vigilance. I felt as though the world had shifted just beyond my sight, as if the city itself had become a stage for things I was only beginning to glimpse. I wanted to avoid him, to ignore the pull I could no longer name. But the more I tried to resist, the more insistent it became. As if some unseen force refused to let me turn away, it was a Tuesday evening when I saw him again. I had gone to the little park near my apartment to clear my mind, the drizzle soaking my hair and coat. I hadn't expected him to appear, yet there he was, standing under the canopy of the oldest oak tree, shadows clinging to him like a cloak. His presence felt heavier than ever, drawing me forward even as a voice in my head warned me to stay away. "Evelyn," he said softly when I approached, the amber of his eyes cutting through the gloom. "You shouldn't have walked here alone," I thought. "Maybe I could escape this world for a little while," I admitted, shivering as the wind swept through the branches. "Maybe I could pretend." He stepped closer, the air around him alive with energy, and I felt my pulse spike. "You cannot pretend anymore," he said, gently but firmly. "Not when you are standing in the middle of it. And not when it's standing at your door." Despite the warning, there was a tenderness in his gaze that unsettled me. It was as though he understood me in a way no one else could, and that understanding carried both comfort and danger. I wanted to step back, but my legs betrayed me, keeping me rooted in place, mesmerized. "I don't understand you," I whispered. "I don't understand any of this. And yet," my voice faltered, "and yet I can't stop thinking about you." He smiled faintly, a shadow of amusement crossing his lips. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to admit that." The corners of his mouth curved in a way that made my chest tighten. "It's dangerous," he said, "but the pull between us is not your fault. It's older than either of us, stronger than you can imagine." I swallowed hard, uncertain if I wanted to hear more or run before I was completely drawn in. "And if I give in?" I asked quietly, not knowing why I was risking the question. He paused, the amber glow of his eyes softening. "Then you will understand what it is to be part of something beyond this world. Something forbidden." The word hung between us, heavy with meaning. Forbidden, dangerous. Yet every nerve in me thrummed with a strange longing, a desire to cross the invisible boundary he had just defined. I wanted to reach for him, to feel the warmth that seemed to radiate from him even in the rain-soaked park. I wanted to step closer, and yet the fear of the unknown kept me from moving. He noticed, of course. He always noticed. "Do not fear the pull," he murmured, almost as if reading my thoughts. "It is not something to resist, only to understand. And you will, in time." We walked then, side by side, the silence stretching between us like a fragile thread. The city lights reflected in the puddles, casting the rain in soft, golden shards. He didn't touch me, yet every movement, every step seemed to draw me closer. I felt the warmth of his presence press against my back, and the invisible tether between us pulled tighter with every heartbeat. "I keep thinking I should stay away," I admitted finally, my voice low. "But I can't. I can't stop thinking about you." His gaze met mine, steady and unwavering. "You are not meant to stop thinking about me," he said simply. "Nor should you. There is a reason we have found each other." There was something in his words, a gravity I could not resist. The world narrowed to him, to his eyes, to the faint magnetic energy that surrounded him. I wanted to understand him, to know what it meant that he had chosen me, that I had been drawn to him, that our paths had collided in ways I couldn't comprehend as we spoke. A shadow flickered across the corner of my vision. I turned instinctively, heart racing, but there was nothing there. Just the rain, the trees, and the faint glow of the street lamps. Lucian noticed my glance, a hint of warning in his expression. "It watches," he said quietly, almost to himself. "You are already caught between worlds, Evelyn. And once you see it—" He didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need him to. The truth was clear in his amber eyes. Danger was not just relit, was close, closer than I could imagine. And yet, there was a vulnerability there I hadn't seen before. A flicker of something human, something raw. "Why me?" I asked softly. "Why now?" He hesitated, just slightly, and then spoke. His voice a whisper that felt like it brushed against my skin. "Because you are the one who will survive it. You are the one who will understand. And because there is a part of you that has always belonged here, even if you did not know it." The words sent a shiver down my spine. They were strange, almost impossible, yet I felt them in my bones. Part of me had always known, though I could not have named it. Part of me had always been waiting, even without knowing what for. We stayed under the oak tree long after the rain had stopped, speaking in hushed tones that felt intimate and forbidden. Every glance, every pause, every faint smile tightened the invisible thread between us. I wanted to ask questions, so many questions, but the words stuck in my throat. Some things I realized could not be understood without being experienced. And then the shocking moment came. We were walking back toward the street, the mist curling around the lamplights when he stopped abruptly. I stumbled slightly against him, and his hand brushed mine. Just a touch, brief, almost accidental. My heart leapt. And for a second, the world narrowed to that single spark of contact. But then I saw it. The movement behind him. The way the fog shifted unnaturally. I caught a glimpse of a figure tall, lithe, and impossibly fast. Its eyes glowed inhumanly, and in the brief flash, I saw fangs. I saw claws. And then, before I could react, it vanished into the mist. Lucian turned to me, its expression unreadable, but his hand gripped mine with a firmness that made my pulse race. "You see now," he said quietly, "you cannot pretend anymore. You are part of this world, whether you wish to be or not." I stared at him, confused, frightened, and yet utterly captivated. There was so much I didn't understand, so much I had yet to learn. And yet I felt a strange certainty, a pull I could not resist. I wanted to stay with him, to follow him into the darkness, to understand whatever this was between us. "You're not human," I whispered, the realization hitting me in a way I had not expected. He did not deny it. Instead, he gave me a look that was both warning and invitation. "No, not entirely, but you are more than human, and that is why you are here." The words left me shaken, my heart racing in a mixture of fear, fascination, and longing. I didn't know if I could trust him fully, yet every fiber of my being wanted to. Every instinct in me, every heartbeat, every breath, was drawn to him, and as we stood there, hand in hand, the mist curling around us like a living thing, I realized something I could not deny. The connection between us was real, dangerous, forbidden, and utterly magnetic. And whatever secrets he held, whatever truths waited to be revealed, I was already in too deep to turn away. His words echoed inside me long after they were spoken. "You are more than human." I wanted to laugh, to deny it, to throw his hand away and insist that this was madness. But his grip was steady, and his eyes those burning, amber eyes held a truth that silenced every instinct to argue. The mist hung heavy, carrying the smell of rain and something metallic I couldn't name. My heart was racing so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "Then tell me what you are," I said, my voice sharp with fear, though inside I was trembling. "If you're not human, then what? What have I been pulled into?" Lucian's expression shifted, not with guilt or shame, but with something heavier, weariness maybe. "The words, don't capture it," he said slowly. "But if you must name me, Then vampire will do. The world seemed to tilt. A dozen images, childish and grotesque, flashed through my mind coffins. Bats, blood dripping from fangs. I wanted to reject it, to scream that such things were myths, fairy tales designed to frighten children. But the memory of the shadow with glowing eyes and claws was too fresh, too real. You expect me to believe that? I whispered, though part of me already did. I expect nothing, he said, his tone calm, almost sorrowful. I only tell you what I am. The rest? The rest is yours to decide. I stepped back instinctively, my body stiff with panic. And what do you want from me? His gaze softened, but his voice remained steady. To protect you, to warn you, to prepare you for what comes. Because now that they have seen you, you are no longer invisible to their world. I shook my head. This is insane. I don't belong in your world. I don't belong in any of this. And yet, he murmured, closing the distance between us with one step. You stand here with me. You feel it too, don't you? The pull, the bond that ties us. That is no accident, Evelyn. It never was. His closeness overwhelmed me, his scent, a mix of rain and something ancient. The heat that radiated from him despite the cold night. I hated that part of me responded. That part of me leaned toward him when every rational thought screamed to run. Stop, I whispered, pressing a trembling hand against his chest. I expected it to feel cold, lifeless, but instead there was warmth, steady and alive. Too alive. Don't do this to me. Don't make me feel like what? He asked softly. Like I need you, I confessed, the words breaking free before I could catch them. My chest tightened instantly. Shame and longing twisting together. Something flickered in his eyes. Desire, sorrow, restraint. You don't need me, he said, though his hand hovered close to mine. But whether you want it or not, your fate is tangled with mine now. That you cannot change. We stood in silence, the rain dripping from the oak leaves above us. My thoughts churned fear, fascination, denial, yearning. He was everything I should despise, dangerous, otherworldly, forbidden. And yet he was the only one who made me feel seen, as if every fragile piece of me was something he understood without words. But just as quickly as the intimacy formed, a new thought clawed into my mind. What if this was a trick? The stranger in the bookstore, Lara, her urgent warning replayed in my head. You don't know him, do you? You need to be careful. Careful, that word had never felt so heavy. I swallowed hard, taking a deliberate step back. If you're a vampire, I said slowly, then what stops you from hurting me? From using me like prey? The question hung in the air like a blade. His face hardened, and for the first time I saw a flash of something dark behind his calm composure. His jaw clenched, and though he didn't move toward me, the intensity in his gaze sent a chill down my spine. I could hurt you, he admitted quietly. Easily. That is the truth you must face. My kind survive on what we take. And yet, he paused, lowering his voice until it was barely a whisper. And yet I would rather destroy myself than see you broken. The words struck deep, trembling inside me, but they did little to ease the gnawing doubt. He was confessing, yes, but that confession only proved the danger was real. Do you see now why you can't trust me fully? He asked, his voice unsteady for the first time. Because I fight with every breath not to betray what you make me feel. I wanted to believe him, but my chest was tight with dread. Then maybe I shouldn't trust you, I whispered. The silence that followed was heavy, unbearable. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher in pain, longing all tangled together. The mist swirled around us, and for a moment I thought he might vanish into it, leaving me alone with nothing but questions. Instead, he turned away, his coat sweeping through the fog. Perhaps you shouldn't, he said finally, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. But that will not change what is coming. And when it does, you will know the cost of doubt. The distance between us grew with each step he took, and I stood frozen, torn in two. Part of me wanted to chase him, to demand answers, to feel his warmth again. Another part of me wanted to flee, to lock every door, to burn every bridge that tied me to him. But I knew neither was possible, because whether I trusted him or not, he had already become part of me. And nothing, not mistrust, not betrayal, not even fear could undo that truth. I told myself I wouldn't see him again, that after his confession, after the sharp cut of mistrust between us, I would retreat into my safe, ordinary life and pretend none of it had happened. But pretending was no longer possible. The city felt different now, as though some veil had been torn away. People hurried with their umbrellas, eyes downcast. But I noticed things they did not: shadows moving against the light, reflections in windows that lingered a second too long, whispers that threaded through the air with no speaker to claim them. It wasn't just paranoia. It was presence. And it was everywhere. Lucien had warned me. They have seen you. I wanted to hate him for dragging me into this. But I couldn't, because every time my heart raced with fear, another part of me remembered his eyes, his voice, the way he had said he would rather destroy himself than see me broken. That truth clung to me like a second skin, the first real. Strike came on a Thursday night. I was leaving the bookstore when I sensed it, the prickling awareness of being watched. The street was quiet, only the glow of the lamps and the steady patter of rain. Yet my pulse quickened. Halfway down the block, a figure emerged from the shadows. Not Lucien. Taller, leaner, his movements fluid and predatory. His eyes glowed faintly crimson in the dim light. And when he smiled, sharp teeth glinted. "You must be Evelyn," he drawled, voice low and silken. The little secret Lucien thought he could keep. I froze, every instinct screaming to run, but my legs felt rooted. "Who are you?" I managed, though my throat was dry. He stepped closer, unhurried, as though savoring my fear. "An old acquaintance. He always did like to play with fire. But this time I think he's let the flames burn too close." Before he could reach me, Lucien appeared, silent, sudden, like he had risen from the fog itself. His coat swept behind him as he stepped between us, his stance protective and unyielding. "Stay away from her, Darius," Lucien said. His voice steeled. Darius. The name rolled off my mind like venom. The stranger's grin widened. "Protective, aren't we? How quaint. Tell me, old friend, how long before you break her the way you've broken everything else?" Lucien's jaw tightened, his eyes glowing brighter, amber against crimson. The air between them crackled with tension, centuries of unspoken history hanging in the balance. "Leave," Lucien said. Now for a moment, I thought Darius might lunge. But instead, he chuckled darkly. "Very well. Keep your bride-to-be. But remember, Lucy in the past has sharp teeth, and it always comes back to bite." With a blur of speed, he vanished into the night, leaving only the echo of his laughter. My knees threatened to buckle, and I gripped the edge of a lamppost for balance. "Bride-to-be," I whispered, staring at Lucien in disbelief. He turned slowly, his eyes still burning, his expression unreadable. "He's trying to rattle you," he said flatly. "That doesn't answer the question," I shot back, my voice trembling. "What did he mean?" Lucien didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, steadying me. His touch was warm, grounding, and despite my anger, my body leaned into it. I hated how much I needed that. We walked in silence, his presence both a shield and a torment. I wanted to demand answers, to tear open every secret he was hiding, but fear of the truth held me back. Still, the questions gnawed at me. What past tied him to Darius? What betrayal lay buried in his history? And why did the word bride make my chest ache with both dread and impossible longing? That night, the dreams returned. But they weren't dreams. They were memories, not my own. I saw Lucien standing on a cliff beneath a blood-red moon, his face younger, harder, but unmistakable. A woman stood beside him, her hand in his, her beauty both radiant and sorrowful. I couldn't hear their words, but I felt the weight of their bond, the ache of love doomed before it could bloom. And then her scream. Shadows dragging her away. Lucien's roar of anguish as he fell to his knees. Helpless, I woke drenched in sweat, my chest tight with grief that wasn't mine. When I saw him again the next evening, I couldn't hold back. "Who is she?" I demanded, my voice sharp. "The woman in my dream?" "Don't lie. No, it was real." His face went pale, his composure cracking for the briefest moment. "You shouldn't have seen that," he said quietly. "But I did." I pressed, my hands shaking. "And now you owe me the truth. Because if I'm going to stand in the middle of this, whatever this is, then I need to know what you're hiding from me." Lucien's eyes softened, sorrow pooling in their depths. "She was someone I failed," he admitted. "Someone who trusted me and paid the price for it. And Darius was there when it happened. He delights in reminding me of it, so I don't already carry the weight every day." His voice broke on the last word, and the pain in it pierced me. I should have recoiled, but instead I reached for him, my hand brushing his cheek. His eyes closed, and for a moment, he leaned into the touch as though it was the first comfort he had known in centuries. "I don't want to be another name in your past," I whispered. His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dim light. "You're not," he said fiercely. "You are different, Evelyn. You are the reason I still fight." The intensity in his voice, the raw honesty of it, shook me to my core. The bond between us was undeniable now, invisible tether pulling tighter with every moment. My fear hadn't vanished, but it was tangled with something else, something deeper. I wanted to step into him, to surrender to the gravity of his presence. But then I remembered Darius's words, the woman's scream in my dream. The sharp truth of betrayal etched in Lucien's past, and I froze. Because what if I wasn't different? What if I was next? The fog thickened around us, the night pressing closer. Lucien's hand found mine, warm, steady, waiting. His gaze burned into me, filled with a question he didn't dare speak aloud, and I realized I had a choice: to pull away and try to reclaim the fragile illusion of safety, or to surrender to him, to destiny, to the forbidden bond that already felt like it owned my soul. The moment stretched, suspended, unbearable. And as the fog closed in, I knew whatever choice I made, it would change everything. The choice lingered in my chest like a stone pressing against my ribs. Pull away or surrender. The decision haunted me with every breath, every glance at Lucien, every shadow that followed me home. But fate, it seemed, was never going to wait for me to decide. 2 nights after Darius's warning, a letter appeared on my doorstep. No footsteps had approached, no knock on the door, just a single envelope resting on the doormat, its edges damp from the fog. My name, Vavelin, was written in elegant, unfamiliar script. I nearly dropped it when I opened it and read the words inside. "You cannot run from what you are. Meet me where the river bends, before midnight. If you want answers, come alone, no signature." Only the faint scent of iron clinging to the paper. I should have burned it. I should have ignored it and locked the door. But I couldn't not after the dreams. Not after Darius's taunts. Not after the Holloway. Lucien's voice had broken when he spoke of the woman he lost, so I went. The river bent in a quiet stretch of woods. The same forest where I'd first seen Lucien's shadow weeks ago. The moon hung low, casting pale light across the water. And there waiting was a woman cloaked in black. Her hair was silver, though her face bore few lines. Her eyes, my eyes, were a clear, stormy gray. "You came," she said. Her voice neither warm nor cold, but heavy, like stone carried too long. "Who are you?" I asked, though my chest already tightened with the answer I feared. She stepped closer, her movements graceful, otherworldly. "My name is Celine, and once, long ago, I was your mother's sister." My breath caught. "That's impossible. I don't have an aunt." She interrupted. "No, not anymore. Your mother severed ties with us the moment she learned what we were. What you were." Celine's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Not mortal. Not entirely. Our bloodline has always carried the shadow of the night. Your grandmother bound it with rituals, sealed it to protect your mother, and in turn, to protect you. But blood cannot be denied forever. Sooner or later, it awakens. My skin went cold. You're saying I'm marked, she finished. Born into a prophecy older than any kingdom, tied to creatures who hunger and burn and grieve. Do you think it is accident that Lucian found you? That Darius hunts you? No, child. You were written into this long before you took your first breath. I shook my head, backing away. No, I'm just me. I'm not part of this. But even as I said it, my mind replayed every dream, every whisper. Every time the shadows bent, toward me instead of away. Selena's eyes softened, almost pitying. You cannot change what you are, but you can choose how to live with it. That choice is yours, and yours alone. Her words were meant to steady me, but instead they unraveled me further. Because if what she said was true, then Lucian hadn't just stumbled into my life, he'd been drawn to me. And Darius's taunts about bride-to-be weren't just to torment him. They were prophecy. I stumbled back into the night, my thoughts a storm, and nearly collided with Lucian himself. He was waiting, as though he'd known I wouldn't resist. What did she tell you? He demanded, his voice sharp, his eyes fierce. You knew, I said, my voice shaking. You knew what I was. What I am. His silence was answer enough. I shoved at his chest, anger breaking through the fear. Why didn't you tell me? You've been keeping me in the dark while everyone else seems to know exactly what's coming for me. Lucian caught my wrists, his grip firm but not cruel, his eyes burning into mine. Because I wanted to give you time. To let you choose me, not destiny. Not prophecy me. Tears stung my eyes, though I hated them. But how can I trust that any of this is real? That you even care when fate may have written it all for us? His face broke, anguish written across it. Because I have fought against fate my entire existence, Evelyn. And still I find myself here, with you. If that is destiny, then I will embrace it. If it is curse, then I will burn with it. But I swear to you, my heart is my own and it is yours. The raw truth in his words rattled me. But before I could answer, before I could decide whether to cling to him or pull away, the air shifted, cold swept through the clearing, and shadows thickened. Darius emerged from the trees. A smile stretched cruel across his face. Touching, he mocked. Truly touching. But she deserves more than half-truths, don't you think, Lucian? Leave, Lucian growled. Oh no, Darius said, stepping closer. His crimson eyes flicked to me, glowing with satisfaction. She deserves to know everything, especially the part you left out. Lucian's body tensed, his hand tightening on mine as though to shield me from words as much as from claws. Darius tilted his head. Tell her, old friend. Tell her why she dreams of blood and screams. Tell her whose death you carry like a chain. Tell her, his smile widened, that the woman in her dreams was not just someone you failed. She was her grandmother, and she died because you loved her. The world tilted. My breath left me in a single, hollow gasp. My grandmother. The woman I had seen in my visions. The one Lucian had sworn he couldn't save. My knees weakened. My heart thundered. And all I could do was stare at Luciana, the man who had vowed to protect me while the truth split my world open. He loved her. He lost her. And now, fate had bound me to him in her place. I wasn't just chosen. I was replacement. The forest seemed to close in. My aunt's words echoing in my head. Blood cannot be denied forever. But now, I didn't know if the blood running through me was destiny or a curse passed down like a wound that would never heal. And as Lucian's eyes met mine, desperate and pleading, I realized I no longer knew who I really was. The forest spun around me, dizzy with revelations as Darius's cruel laughter clung to the night air. My grandmother, Lucian's lost love. The blood that ran through my veins wasn't just mine, it carried centuries of curses. Of choices made long before me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Lucian reached for me, his voice breaking. Evelyn, don't listen to him. It isn't what it sounds like. But how could it not be? The woman from my dreams. The one he had failed. The one he had mourned. My grandmother Dot and now me Darius leaned against a tree, satisfied, as though the very crack in my trust was what he'd come to see. You see, little bride, history loves to repeat itself. And Lucien, poor Lucien, never learns. He loved her, he lost her. And now fate hands him you, her shadow. His smile gleamed in the moonlight. How poetic! Enough, Lucien snarled, his fangs flashing, his grip on my hand tightening as though to keep me tethered. Leave before I tear you apart. But I didn't want to be tethered. I yanked my hand free, trembling, my voice raw. Tell me he's lying. Tell me you didn't love her. Silence. The pause was too long, too heavy. Finally, Lucien whispered, I did. The words struck harder than any blade. My chest ached, my pulse roaring in my ears. I turned away, every instinct screaming to run. But the night didn't grant me the chance. From the shadows, more figures emerged. 3, maybe 4 vampires, their eyes burning like dying coals. Darius lifted a hand casually, as if conducting an orchestra, and they fanned out, circling us. You've kept her too long, Lucien, Darius said smoothly. The council will want her. Alive, of course, at least for now. My heart lurched. The council. Another name. Another enemy I didn't understand. Lucien's body shifted. His presence coiled tight like a storm about to break. Over my dead body. Darius smirked. That can be arranged. Everything blurred after that. Lucien launched forward, striking like a shadow with claws and strength I couldn't comprehend. The others met him with snarls and hisses, the sound of flesh tearing and branches snapping filling the air. Run, Lucien shouted, his voice ragged with effort. But I couldn't. My legs rooted to the earth as fear and confusion tangled inside me. I wanted to flee. But leaving anyone to fight alone felt impossible. One of the attackers broke past Lucien's defense, lunging toward me. I stumbled back, heart hammering, certain that claws would be the last thing I felt. But before it reached me, another figure struck Selene. My aunt's silver hair gleamed in the moonlight as she slashed the vampire across the face with something glinting. A dagger glowing faintly blue. The creature shrieked and fell back. Selene grabbed my arm. Move, Evelyn. If you stay, you die. I stared at her, torn. Lucien was still locked in combat, his face feral, his eyes burning with fury. Could I leave him? Could I trust her? Darius laughed above the chaos. Oh, how delicious! Family reunited. Secrets spilling like blood. He stepped closer, his crimson gaze fixed on me. Tell me, Evelyn, you really believe he chose you? Or are you only here because destiny has a cruel sense of humor? His words sliced deep. My mind replayed Lucien's confession, the ghost of my grandmother's face. The way he hadn't denied it. For a heartbeat, doubt consumed me, and in that heartbeat, Lucien faltered. One of the attackers drove him to the ground, pinning him. Lucien. I cried, wrenching free of Selena's grip, running toward him. But Darius moved faster. He caught me by the wrist, his hold cold and iron strong. No further, he murmured, his breath brushing my ear. If he dies tonight, it will be his own fault. But you belong elsewhere. I struggled, kicking, twisting, but his strength was inhuman. Lucien roared, the sound animalistic, filled with rage and desperation. His eyes locked on mine, glowing like fire through the chaos. Don't touch her, he bellowed, something in his voice broken, raw, pleading seared through me. But Darius only chuckled, his grip unrelenting. The council wants her alive, brother, and alive she will be. For now, let her go. Lucien's roar was thunder. For a split second, I thought he might break free, that he might tear through his captors, destroy Darius, and reach me. But then one of the vampires drove a blade through Lucien's side. His cry ripped through the night, guttural and agonized. Lucien! My scream echoed, hollow and helpless. He staggered, collapsing to his knees, blood soaking into the earth. Time froze. Darius's smile widened, cruel and triumphant. You see, Evelyn? This is what comes of loving him. This is what fate does to fools who fight it. He yanked me back. Dragging me into the shadows, I clawed at his grip, tears blurring my vision. The image of Lucien falling burned into my mind. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was Lucien's face. Pale with pain, but still fierce, his eyes locked on mine. Wordless, but screaming one desperate truth. Don't give up, Dot, and then everything went black. The world blurred as Darius dragged me through the forest. Branches whipped my face, roots tore at my shoes, but his grip never loosened. My lungs burned, my throat raw from screaming Lucien's name. When at last he stopped, we're in a ruined stone courtyard swallowed by ivy and shadows. Crumbled pillars rose like broken teeth around us. The air carried a heavy metallic temps that made my skin crawl. This place, I whispered, shivering. The council's forgotten hall, Darius said, shoving me forward. Where truth is bled from lies. Others stepped from the shadows. Vampires, dozens of them, faces pale, eyes glowing faintly. They formed a circle, silent and watchful. At their center stood a throne carved of obsidian, cold and cruel. Waiting Dot and seated upon it was a woman. Her presence was like ice and fire together, ancient, beautiful, terrifying. Black hair flowed down her shoulders, and her crimson gown seemed stitched from night itself. Her eyes, dark as endless pits, fixed on me with unnerving calm. So she said softly, her voice like velvet hiding a blade. The bloodline awakens at last. My knees weakened. Who are you? I am Seraphine, she said, rising gracefully. Head of the council, keeper of our laws, and soon your judge. Her words froze me. Judge for what crime? Darius bowed his head with mock reverence. She walked willingly into Lucien's arms. He's already broken oath and blood. Tell me, counselor, is this not proof of his treachery? Murmurs rippled through the circle. My heart pounded. Seraphine's gaze cut through me. Child, do you know what you are? I swallowed hard, remembering Selena's words, the prophecy, my grandmother. My voice trembled. I don't. She's lying, Darius hissed. She knows. She's his destined bride. The word struck me again, bride, like a collar tightening around my throat. Seraphine stepped closer, her eyes glinting. You are the last of a line that once nearly destroyed us. Your grandmother tried to unite our world with the mortal one. Love made her reckless. And Luciene was her undoing. The breath rushed from my lungs. It was true. Lucien hadn't just loved her. He had helped destroy her. And now Seraphine continued, her voice soft but merciless. History repeats itself. Do you see why we cannot allow you to remain in his hands? I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. You don't understand. He saved me. He's not what you think. Darius laughed cruelly. Oh, but he is. You've seen glimpses, haven't you? His hunger, his fury, the monster that no vow can cage. I thought of his fangs flashing, his voice breaking, his hands trembling as he confessed truths I hadn't wanted to hear. The monster and the man. Both lived in him. Seraphine circled me, her gown whispering against the stones. The choice is simple. Denounce him, and we will protect you. Cling to him, and you will both fall. My chest heaved, torn between safety and the storm that raged inside me. If I denounced Lucien, perhaps I'd live. Perhaps the council would guard me. But the thought of betraying him, of leaving him broken and bleeding in that forest, seared me like fire. And yet, hadn't he betrayed me first? Keeping secrets. Loving my grandmother before me. Speak, Seraphine commanded. Where does your loyalty lie? My lips parted. My mind screamed. I couldn't choose. Not safety. Not denial. Not love. Not truth. Before I could answer, a crash split the air. The gates at the far end of the courtyard burst inward, iron splintering. Figures stormed in, a blur of claws, rage, and blood. Lucian, he was staggering, side still bleeding, but his fury blazed brighter than the moon. He tore through the guards with feral strength, his eyes locked only on me, Evelyn. My heart lurched. Relief and terror tangled as he fought his way forward. Seraphine's face remained calm, though her eyes narrowed. So the traitor comes. Lucian staggered to a halt, panting, his body trembling. She is mine. You will not touch her. The circle of vampires hissed, their unity like a storm gathering. Darius stepped forward, his smirk unshaken. Mine, you mean? She doesn't even know what you've hidden. Tell her, Lucian. Tell her the rest before I do. Lucian's eyes flashed, haunted. What is he talking about? I demanded, my voice breaking. What else are you hiding from me? Lucian's silence cut deeper than any blade. Darius's grin widened. He hasn't told you that your grandmother's death wasn't fate. It was him. He chose her. He marked her, and when she was hunted for it, he failed to save her. She died because of him and because of the curse he passed on to you. No, I whispered, shaking my head. That can't, but Lucian's face told me it could. The council erupted in chaos, voices clashing, fangs bared. Evelyn, Lucian's voice tore through the storm. Whatever he says, whatever you fear, it doesn't change this. I love you. Not your grandmother. Tears streamed down my face. His words seared me. His truth or his lie, I couldn't tell. Choose. Seraphine ordered again, her voice thundering over the chaos. Now, the world tilted. The vampires closed in. Darius's hand reached for me. Lucian stumbled forward, blood soaking his shirt. And in the chaos, Selene appeared at the gate, her dagger drawn, her voice sharp as steel. Evelyn, don't listen to them, listen to your blood. Everyone froze, the weight of her words ringing like a bell. My blood. My prophecy. My curse. The circle tightened. Lucian's hand stretched toward me. Darius's grip closed on my arm. Selene shouted my name, and then Seraphine lifted her hand. Shadows surged from the earth, chains of darkness that wrapped around my wrists and throat, yanking me to my knees. No, Lucian roared, throwing himself toward me, but the chains dragged me back, binding tighter, cold as death. Seraphine's eyes glowed like coals. You are ours now, child, and your choice has been made. I screamed, fighting the chains, my heart tearing in two. Lucian's face blurred through the haze, his voice echoing desperate. Broken. And then the darkness swallowed me whole. The night was not silent anymore. It was alive with battle cries, the crack of branches and the metallic scent of blood lingering in the air. I stood in the ruined courtyard of the old abbey, my heart thundering in my chest, my breath frosting in the bitter wind. Around me, shadows darted, fangs flashing, claws striking, bodies colliding in a storm of violence. The prophecy had led us here. The whispered truths, the visions, the cryptic warnings they had, all gathered like storm clouds, until now. This was the night it all unraveled. Or the night it all began. Adrian was at the center of it, his figure cutting through the chaos like a dark flame. His eyes glowed with that haunting crimson light, and every strike he dealt carried centuries of wrath and sorrow. He moved with terrifying beauty, a predator born from legend. But he wasn't fighting for conquest tonight. He was fighting for me. I wanted to run to him, to stand at his side, but I was rooted where I stood. Fear and awe binding me like chains. Around me, our enemies swarmed, drogues, hunters, creatures that had followed the scent of prophecy. They wanted me. They wanted the bride of night, as the ancient text had named me. A rough hand seized my arm from behind. I gasped, spinning, and came face to face with a hunter cloaked in black leather, a silver blade glinting in his hand. His grip burned like fire on my skin. "You're the key," he hissed, his eyes fever bright. "Your blood will end this war." I struggled, panic crashing over me, but before the blade could fall, Adrian was there. He tore the hunter away from me with a snarl so deep it rattled the stones beneath our feet. In an instant, the man lay broken, motionless on the ground. Adrian turned to me, his chest heaving. his face pale with fury and fear. "Stay close to me." But as he reached for me, another wave of enemies crashed into him, dragging him into the fray once more. I staggered back, my vision spinning. The prophecy. My grandmother's words. My own blood. I wasn't just caught in this war, was its heart. And for the first time, I understood what that meant. A cold voice whispered inside me, "You cannot run from what you are." I closed my eyes, and the strange power I had felt flickering in me these past nights rose like a tide. Images flashed my mother's face, the hidden journal, the symbol carved into my family's graves. My bloodline had been touched by shadow long before I was born. I was not merely human. I was the bridge. The air trembled. My skin prickled with fire. And then I felt it. The same pulse that lived inside Adrian, that ancient thrum of the night. I gasped, opening my eyes. The world around me had sharpened. Every heartbeat, every whisper of wings, every flicker of light felt them all. I was part of this. A scream split the air. I turned to see Adrian forced to his knees, silver chains coiled around him. The hunters had worked together, dragging him down with weapons forged to pierce even the immortal. No. The word tore from my throat, raw and desperate. I ran to him, shoving through the chaos. Every step was agony, but I couldn't stop. Adrian's eyes found mine through the smoke and blood, filled with both command and plea. "Run!" he rasped, his voice breaking under the weight of the chains. "They'll kill you." "Run, Alina." But I couldn't. I wouldn't. The pull between us was stronger than fear, stronger than fate itself. I dropped to my knees before him, ignoring the searing heat of the silver. My hand found his cheek, cold as marble yet trembling beneath my touch. "I won't leave you," I whispered. "Not now. Not ever." The hunters shouted, raising their blades. Time slowed. My heart pounded. And somewhere deep inside me, something broke open. Light burst from me, dark light, shadowed and fierce, as though the night itself had leaped from my veins. It swept through the courtyard like a storm, knocking the hunters back, shattering their chains, bending the air with raw power. When it cleared, silence fell. Bodies lay scattered, the survivors scrambling into the trees, terror etched on their faces. Only Adrian and I remained in the heart of the ruined abbey, breathless, shaken, alive. He looked at me as though seeing me for the first time. His hand reached up, brushing the tears from my cheek, lingering as though he feared I might vanish. "You," he whispered, his voice unsteady. "You carry the night within you. You were never meant to be theirs. You were meant to be mine." His words sent a shiver down my spine, both fear and longing mingling in my veins. But even as he spoke them, I knew this was only the beginning. The prophecy wasn't finished. The war wasn't over. Yet here we were, standing amid ruins, blood and shadows clinging to us. Hearts bound by something neither of us had chosen, but both of us could no longer deny. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of what I was becoming. I felt unstoppable. But destiny was not done with us. Far off in the woods, a new howl rose low, guttural, filled with fury. Not human, not vampire, something older, something worse. Adrian's jaw tightened, his hand still clutching mine. "It's coming," he said, his voice a vow and a warning. "The true enemy has awakened." The night trembled around us, heavy with what was to come, and I knew the final battle, the final truth was waiting. Just beyond the shadows, the howl in the distance still rang in my ears as dawn threatened on the horizon. The night had not ended and had only reshaped itself into something heavier, more dangerous. My body trembled with exhaustion, but inside me a strange strength hummed. The power I had unleashed still whispered through my veins like a half-remembered song. Adrian's hand gripped mine as if he feared the world might tear me away. His crimson eyes no longer looked only dangerous. They looked vulnerable. For the first time, he wasn't a creature of shadow or legend. He was a man who had risked everything. "We can't stay here," he murmured. His voice was steady, but beneath it I heard the weight of centuries. The true enemy will come. And when it does, it won't stop until it has you. I swallowed hard, the cold air burning my throat. Then we faced it together. He shook his head, pain flashing across his features. You don't understand, Alina. This thing that stirs it's older than my kind, older than prophecy itself. Even I fear it. For a moment, silence stretched between us. The abbey ruins stood around us like broken guardians, blackened stone catching the pale glow of moonlight. And I realized something. Fear would always exist. Danger would always stalk us. But what mattered wasn't running from it. It was standing despite it. Then let it fear us, I whispered. Adrian's eyes widened, then softened. Slowly, reverently, he drew me into his arms. For one fleeting moment, amid blood and ashes, we stood as though we were not hunted souls, but simply two hearts that had found each other against all odds. But fate was not done with us. Yet, the ground shook beneath us. Subtle at first, then stronger, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. From the tree line emerged a figure cloaked in shadow, taller than any man, its eyes glowing with a sickly green fire. Its voice slid across the ruins like poisoned silk. The bride of night awakens. The bond is sealed. At last the worlds will break. Adrian tensed, pulling me behind him. Stay back, he commanded, fangs glinting. Every muscle ready for war. But I knew this battle was not his to fight alone. The shadow creature stepped forward, its form shifting like smoke, its presence suffocating. Every part of me wanted to recoil, to hide. Yet something deep in my blood surged, pulling me toward it. My grandmother's voice seemed to echo in the wind. You are the bridge. I stepped forward, my hand brushing Adrian's arm in silent reassurance. His gaze snapped to me, furious and afraid, but I shook my head. This isn't just your war, it's mine. The creature's laughter was hollow, a sound that scraped bone. You cannot deny your destiny, child. You are neither human nor monster. You are nothing. No, I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled. I am both. I closed my eyes and let the power within me rise again. But this time, it wasn't wild. It wasn't an accident. It was mine. The shadows bent around me, wrapping me not in darkness but in strength. The world sharpened again, every leaf, every breath. Every heartbeat glowing in my awareness, not when I opened my eyes. The creature staggered back as though it saw not just me, but everything I carried, the love I had chosen, the blood I could not escape, the strength I had finally embraced. Adrian's voice reached me, low and reverent. Alina, the battle that followed was not fought with swords or fangs. It was fought with will, with power, with the truth of what I was. The creature struck with claws of shadow, but each blow only fed the storm that rose from me. It roared with centuries of hunger. But I answered with centuries of defiance carried in my bloodline. And then I remembered something Adrian had once whispered. Long before I knew what I was, light and darkness are not enemies. They are halves of the same whole. So I did not destroy the creature. I absorbed it. I drew its power into me, binding it, caging it, till it became nothing more than a memory inside my veins. Silence fell again, deeper this time. The earth stilled. The air was clean. I swayed, weak but unbroken. Adrian caught me, his arms fierce and desperate around me. His lips brushed my hair, his voice shaking. You should not have survived that. But you did. My bride of night. My miracle. I pulled back just enough to see his face. The crimson in his eyes flickered with something softer now, something achingly human. For centuries he had been a creature of survival, a prince of shadows. But tonight he looked at me not as prey or prophecy. He looked at me as a choice, and I realized that was what we had both gained, the freedom to choose. The abbey lay in ruins. The night littered with scars. We had lost innocence. We had lost the illusion of safety. And yet we had gained something greater. A bond forged not by prophecy alone, but by love chosen in the face of death, as dawn broke. The first rays of light touched Adrian's skin. He flinched but did not burn. The bond between us, the merging of shadow and blood, had changed him too. He was no longer bound fully to the night. Just as I was no longer bound fully to the day, we were something new. He turned to me, his hand warm where once it had been cold. Alina, the world will hunt us still. They will never understand what we are. I reached for his hand, holding it tightly, my gaze on the rising sun. Then let them hunt. We'll face it together for the first time. Adrian smiled, not the guarded smirk of a predator, but the true, unshaken smile of a man who had found home. We stood there hand in hand as the sun climbed higher. Shadows and light stretched across the ruins, weaving together, no longer at war. And in that moment, I knew I was no longer just Alina, no longer just human, no longer just the bride of prophecy. I was the vampire bride, not chained by fate, but bound by love forever between worlds, forever his.